Well, hello all, Game Methuselah. Hope you guys all had a great Labor Day weekend, or wherever you're at. Maybe you have some sort of holiday for the sort of end of summer, beginning of the oncoming fall. It was hotter than the hinges of hell here, so it's been a fun few weeks. Fortuitously, I live in a beach city, which makes it 20 degrees cooler, and I can always go down to the beach with my dog and let her run around and chase balls and other dogs. So we had a good time, and I really enjoyed it. After my last video, we've been talking about gaming. Some people have been putting together how you game, all kinds of new games out there, things like that. I wanted to do an advertisement first. For those of you who want to support my channel, please, please, please do not send any money to Patreon. I have not received a dime from them in like a year. I assume they changed the rules with them somewhere, and they had to send information for me that had to make me give up a blood sample and my bank account, Social Security, where I lived, what political party I voted for. It doesn't really matter. They asked everything, so I know it's not their fault. I know the government's asking this because God forbid somebody make $500 and the government doesn't get their piece of the action. So, I get that. But if you want to support me, go to itch.io-D9 games and buy my game. My writing partner, Steve Key, and I are really proud of Enlightened. As you know, you can pick up the PDF for $10 on our channel. If you don't have $10, the playtest version and I think the alpha version we put up are both free. You can just download, look at what we were doing and how we were thinking of it. The other great thing about buying the PDF for us is we didn't really look at this as a moneymaker. We figure that if we get famous enough and people enjoy our game and want to play it, we'll do a Kickstarter and come up with a hard copy and do what everybody else did, put a printed one out there, and then you can buy it as the souvenir, and we'll make it as pretty as possible and put it out for you. But until then, we want you playing. And the nice thing about it is every time Steve goes in there and puts up a new update, we add more stuff, we add more monsters or magical items, or we're going to add adventures and things go on. It gets uploaded if you've purchased it. It just says, hey, you've got an update. And then boom, the new rules come. Now, we might change things. We might keep it the same. We might come up with some new ideas, and we have. So it's kind of cool for you if you're enjoying our game to get in there and get the new stuff. Also, I'm looking for ways to get this game out to more players and how to do stuff. And again, that's going to be coming in the future here, and I will mention that as well. And continuing on with the fact of how do you run your game. And that's what I want to talk about more today to add on to it. Got a lot of response from my last video. And one guy said, hey, you always talk about minimalist game theory. Why don't you give us some more information? So I said, sure, he's right. I should. So I'm going to go ahead and talk to you about that. And the easiest way to do it is just tell you what I do and how I've done it for years. Now, you guys know my love-hate relationship with modules, and mostly it's hate-hate relationship with modules. Not that I think they're bad. I think they have a good use. I think if you feel more comfortable with it, you should use them, and all that. But honestly, I think they're kind of in many ways a waste. And my partner, Steve, came up with an attitude about it that we talked about over one of our breakfast meetings we have weekly to discuss how the game's going and what we want to do next to move forward and how to improve it and how to fix problems and all the things that come up when you are rolling up a game that is brand new and you're trying to make it so very different from what's out there to give people something, a new option. And that's what I think we've done really successfully. But like anything else, you're going to find players, especially as you allow them to do more like our game does, where people can design their own abilities and skills, and the characters really evolve based upon what the players want and how many enlightenments they can roll. And I'm sure if you've heard in the past or even looked into the game, you kind of know what I'm talking about. But if you don't, again, download the game and play it. And we're going to be trying to do more things to show you adventures and the like. But what Steve said, which I really liked, he said, are you a game master or a prep master? And suddenly that really resonated with me because I know so many people who I've talked to who've said, well, yeah, I run the modules and I do all this, but after a certain point in time, I just get worn out or I don't have the time to keep up. And I think that's the issue. The issue is modules are the prep masters. You've got to do so much work to essentially prepare the adventure, which means you have to read everything and know what the adventure is going to do, that you're never going to be able to have anything new. Thusly, the other problem is most people then railroad their players into how to play. Well, I can only do what's in the module. Well, really? Okay, if that's the case, then really you haven't invented anything. You're just playing the same thing everybody else is doing. You've heard me say this. But truthfully, I wanted to say the easiest way to do is tell you what I do. What I do is I start with a couple big bad guys, a map, in the old days when there was just a map, or what I'd now love to do if I'm playing a game system that isn't mine, where of course I am inventing my system, I would buy what would be like a background setup, the whole thing. So the famous things you might know is if you're into D&D, you know Greyhawk, you know Forgotten Realms, you know Dragonlance, you know all the ones that basically they made, which was the world. You know, it gives you the cities and the maps and all the things, and then it gives you a hint of who's here, who's there, what bad guys run it, who the Lord is. You've got all this information for you that you don't have to come up with, but you don't have to dwell on it right away. You just say, we're going to pick this little area. You can read about what's going on there. The Earl of such and such wants you to go out there and capture this item for him that's in this underground, and the adventure starts. Now, I have to be very truthful with me, you guys. I've always done it this way because if it's my content, great. But if it's not my content, why? I'm lazy and I'm not really particularly that smart. So it's really easier for me to just take the world and utilize the basics in that and then embellish on it. The other thing I tell you is I'm not prepared. I have a big bad guy. I have a second or third bad guy maybe involved, a monster somewhere, a dragon here, and they're all going to be somewhere going to fit into this campaign. There's going to be a village and a town that the characters are going to develop and evolve in, and it'll be their home away from home or their home on home, and that will be all the pieces. But from the time I start with maybe one dungeon and maybe one little minor adventure overland and a couple little small things I've put together, I don't know what's going to happen from then on. And I've told people, when I start an adventure, a campaign, I have no idea what's going to happen because it is going to be a cooperative build between me and what I see in my vision and what every player in my group is going to see. And even the people who have just gotten into games who think, oh, I don't know anything, I'm new, they're worried about the rules. Forget about the rules. Enlightened is a great game. Draw Steel is a great game. Dungeons & Dragons is a great game. And another great game out there that I love that almost no one has heard about is Earth Dawn. I loved Earth Dawn. I couldn't get enough people to play it. There's a lot to it. It did make me sort of a prep master in that I had to read a lot to get into it, but there was a lot of really cool content. And their backstory was very cool. I don't even want to break it with you. I think I've mentioned it years ago, so if you dig through old videos of mine, you'll find it. But the idea is people have had to hide from the great darkness of the bad demons that came forward, and they've sort of buried themselves for hundreds of years, decades at least, and now they've come back out in the world to see what's going on. So everything is sort of fresh, and thusly there's no preconceived notion amongst the players of what they're going to do. And also, you allow them to decide how their characters are going to go and how they're going to evolve. And that's what you want. You want the players giving you the feedback, and their feedback drives your game, where they're going to be. I mean, I'm running Albion, which I love, and I also hoped the designer of that game would have been still alive, and I was so heartbroken when he wasn't. Because I really love the color of the game he made. Now, he didn't make a role-playing game. He made a board game. But the board game felt like such a great role-playing driver that it was really cool. Now, when you decide to play, pick a city. Pick a system. And let's, just for the sake of ease, thinking you're Dungeons & Dragons, start with Greyhawk. Greyhawk was the original Dungeons & Dragons. There's lots of stuff out there. I have most of it. All the pre-release stuff, all the city-states and all the maps of the world and what's going on here and what's going on there. And then it evolved and evolved and evolved. And there's been many, many, many others. But the cool thing is most of them are like this. They're sort of like a box thing, and they give you a bunch of stuff. And the bunch of stuff is really kind of simple. There's usually a book like this. And this one, I'm sure, is going to say something really basic like The Explorer's Guide to Barsave, which is the world. Well, that's just going to give you a great overview of what's going on. Now, you can let your players read these. I mean, you don't need to basically hide 90% of the information. It doesn't matter. You want them to get involved and say, hey, I want to go here. And that may have a module of its own, or it might have a book format of its own, whatever you feel comfortable. Or you write your own content. And that's always what I did. And I would start to then run into it and find out, well, what creatures are here? What NPCs are here? What leaders are here? What politics is here? How does it run and make it work from adventure to adventure? And the first time the players hit it, boom, they changed my game all the time. You know, so many adventures I've told you about where I had this great elaborate trap and the players got outfoxed me and they snuck around the back and found the secret door that I put in there that you could find. And of course it would allow you to do this, you know, and oh gosh. And now they turned the tables and they leaped above my bad guys and they beat them. And it was, you know, it's exciting. You want to give your players a chance to thrive and grow and become fabulous, fabulous, fabulous players who enjoy the game. It's not up for your self-aggrandizement. It doesn't matter. I can be excited and having a great time, but what people don't know, and don't tell anyone, I'm always rooting for the players. I always want them to succeed in a super dramatic way. When characters die in a heroic manner, I'm thrilled. I mean, you know, when they stumble through a trap and die in a pile of yellow mold, okay, I'm not so happy with that. But that's my growth search. That is how I improve my game and make it better for my players all the time. Would I rather play? Sure. I'd rather be on the other side of the screen. But the fact is, I'm pretty good at making stuff up on the fly, doing things that can change at a moment's notice. So that's how I became sort of the resident DM in a lot of places that I played. And I would love to do more and more for you for that. So I'm kind of now talking to some local hobby shops, thinking maybe I can get something going where I can have painting, because as some of you know, I'm a reasonably decent painter, and I can teach painting really well to people so that you can paint miniatures and how to run your games and maybe run some games in there. And, you know, like I said, get people to play my Enlightened game and getting people to play other games. I mean, I think that people should be going down and haunting Matt, who, you know, and getting him maybe one of the local shops that has in-store gaming to run Draw Steel. I mean, it's going to be a good game. Matt Coville's a great DM. But does he have a chance to DM? No, he's too darn busy getting his game running. But if he can teach it to people and get it people out there who want to run it, boom, you find a shop, you start running it, and then you will get to do something that players, I think, kind of dream of, but usually don't get a chance to do it. You will influence the future of your game. I mean, Critical Role's awesome, but you think it evolved because of what they were thinking all the time? No, it evolved from all the input they got from the players and from all the people watching and enjoying it and then trying to duplicate what they were doing or run in the world they were running. And that's what makes the game magical. Again, going back to, buying one of these local things, the Barstow of Game Master book. Well, you don't know anything about the world. You're an ignorant. You just stumbled into this game. You have no idea. Guess what? There's your prep. Now, I might skim it. I might actually sit down and read it, depending on how interesting it is. But I'm going to be able at that point to really be a reasonably competent DM. The rest of it, as I tell you, is let your players lead. Don't draw them by the nose and get them to do what you say the module says you have to do. Oh, you didn't kick into this door, so you never found the big treasure. Oh, sorry. Or you didn't find that secret door which led you to the big bad guy, so the people all died and something horrible happened and you lose. No. You gotta basically be able to stretch the game out, because it's not the book, the paper. This is not the end all and be all of the role-playing camp. The players at your table, the players on your Zoom, however you're enjoying the game, are the people who need and deserve you to be giving them the best quality service to adventuring they can, because it's all about the fun. We played a game the other night of a game I had never played before. It has a generator that self-generates adventures. It's French, so they just gave me a photocopy of it, and I said, okay, we did the rules. But what it does is that every time you have a decision making, the players sort of amongst themselves decide, well, what decision are we going to make? And then you go onto a chart and you roll. Now, is it fabulous? Well, maybe not, but you know what? It worked. We didn't have a game master, and I will tell you, I said, well, I think it's this, and I think it's that, and everyone can do a little input. And by the time we put it together, we had a great time. We had a very cool adventure. Our characters got fleshed out. We found out how really interesting they are, and we had some NPCs, and we set up for the future adventure. It'll be tons of fun. Now, is it a game system I want? No, but I'd rather have them running my game system, Enlightened. Oh, wait. But it really, really works, and that's the point I want you to know. It doesn't matter. I mean, the reason I'm showing you this game is because Earth Dawn deserved a better fate than it got. And I really wish that if you go out there and you're going to buy a game thing, you're going to buy Greyhawk from D&D for $15 on eBay, an old ratted out peak copy that somebody used, you're going to have all that magic, and they're going to have things written in the captions and something in the pages. You'll end up running somebody else's adventure, or you'll find out something mythical this guy did in the 70s or 80s that was super magical that you want to steal. It's like my Deep Silence dungeon. They made this dungeon, and I gave it to Matt, and I don't know if he's ever run it, but it was one of these things that it was essentially hell. You go to hell and try to get yourself out. And you didn't really know that at the beginning, but of course most players figured it out by the time they ran it. And I ran 6 or 7 groups into this super adventurous underground that was incredibly treacherous and dangerous. And it was fun. And this was in the D&D 0 first edition rule days. So if you can run it then, you can run it anywhere. The other things they always give you in these games, box sets, are maps. There's always going to be a world map, something you can utilize. So you have some pieces that you can start with, and you're not starting from scratch and having to draw everything out like we had to do back in the Dark Ages. Something else they find that's cool is they give you little art for magical items. Ooh, now, these aren't going to be just junky ones, though they have had some that are written out, but a lot of them are blank. They leave them blank for you so you can say, ooh, you have this artifact, and you can decide what it does. That's what I love to do, and then the players get it. Now, in my game, Enlightened, which is kind of cool, is a lot of times I'll give out an artifact that maybe has one item, but you sense that it's something greater. It's got a name, or it's been thrice broken, or whatever it is. We've given out one of the dragon's teeth, and now people are watching it up. Well, the sword has sort of a mind of its own, and does it think you deserve it? No, it doesn't. It thinks you are worthless. But as you prove yourself and you enlighten, you will take this enlightenment and throw an enlightenment on the sword, and the next enlightenment comes. And if you don't have one, let's assume you're just starting with, I don't know what to make. It's an artifact sword. I don't know what it'll do. Let the players figure it out. And as they enlighten it, they'll say, well, I think it does this. And you can see this thing evolve within your game group uniquely to that party, that they'll have an experience that no one else will ever have. And that's going to be the super, super fun. They're going to also have fun things to collect in the future. They're going to tell you things about, generating your characters. Actually, in this game, somebody in my game group made up everybody's character on their computer from who the hell knows when. And they were playing in the game. Now, I got quickly off track on this, and I have so many other Earth Dawn modules that I would use as base locations, even though realistically I never ran the adventures in them. I would run my own, but they would sort of be in parallel with. And I always hoped that somebody would say, I want to run an adventure in this system, and I want to play here in this area. And I said, well, I have one that I haven't looked at. You're welcome to run it. And that actually worked. We got some players who liked the modules, and they'd look at it, and they'd run it, and they'd be running adventures in my world. And I love that, because every time they run an adventure, they change the dynamic of my world. I see something new. I see something better. I think that was way cooler than what I thought of, because, well, I'm just me. But you had a fresh look at it, and they came up with something that was better than what you had up. Well, you just add it in. Look at that. It's there, just like you said. It's really cool. The treasure golem, that I made up on the whimsy when the players decided to go off the beaten track in my adventure and go into the gnome bank to rob the gnomes because the gnomes had cheated them on a deal. Well, okay, it was fair and reasonable. And what the heck would the vault have if nothing more than a really cool treasure golem, which just happened to be in the rules. And da-da, there we are. So much creativity at your table you never see, because you never reach out and ask. Ask them. This is why I said, I basically do, minimalist game. I give you the least to do because I want you to reach out and come up with it. And I love Enlightened because half the time we can make up some adventures and modules and skills, but when that person rolls that double 9 or triple 9 or quadruple 9 and gets an enlightenment, a first enlightenment or a second or a third enlightenment, and now they have this mega super ability, they're going to be looking at me going, I wanted to do this. And you're like, well, okay, that works. Maybe it's a little too much, or maybe it's not, and you'll find that the players will they'll reach into the world and they'll see things you never did. And thusly, you will become so much better. People will think you were this brilliant game master, when really all you are is Jim Murphy. And that's all I've ever been. I'm a reasonably decent painter and not a bad storyteller, but when it all boils down to it, I'm just like you. And that's the point. It's going to be just a little bit of time and effort and patience on your part, and just asking your players to be understanding. Sometimes it's like, guys, look, I'm doing the best I can. Help me out here. What do you think's going on? And suddenly they'll realize it's their world. It's their adventure. It's their game. And when it comes to a completion and you have this dynamic finale and something really awesome happens, or even something horrible happens, the players are going to be thrilled. And this is all because, maybe in some ways, because I was a D&D 0 guy when there really wasn't anything, I got to watch other people out there sort of make it up, do it as it had to be. They kind of said, well, and were they often good? Sure. Were some of them really awful? Yeah. But they all are trying their best. And sometimes, Steve Kish, who didn't love to DM'd a couple big campaign things, and oh my God, they were awesome. He just never felt confident enough to do it. But the one battle with the individual knight and the doppelganger, that it was an adventure he made up, I still think ranks as one of the greatest adventures I ever played. You go into the underground to rescue the maiden, and there's the doppelganger. And the doppelganger doppelgangs you. And man, it's awesome, because at the end of the adventure, did you win or did you die? And now the doppelganger has taken your place. So many things that can come out in a game that you're never going to see if you're running in a module. I mean, I run in modules, I have to. I run modules for cons and stuff because, well, they need people who can run modules. And half the times I'll have run in a module when I used to play in the living games, and I would say, oh, I played this module, sure, I can run it. And then I'd flip through it and read it and say, I never saw this, I never heard this, I never saw that, The game masters didn't have the time. They didn't have the knowledge. They didn't have the feeling, the skill to do that. So they just whipped it out and blew out a game in 3 hours. Bang, bang, here's your XP, move on to the next game. And I went, wow, so much gets lost because you're not letting the players in on the secret. And the secret is, you're the one making the decisions. Just don't say it that way. Just let them get the game and evolve it and say, what do you think is here? Because they may think what beyond the door is way cooler than what you think is beyond the door. You hear something, what is it? Oh my God, it's more likely this or that. Or it could be another one of those boulets that Jim threw at us. Ugh. And you go, maybe it should be a boulet. Oh, wait a second, boom. Now, I don't normally do that, of course. And, well, let's just say I've maybe never done it. That might stretch my nose a bit, but you'll get the point. The point is, get your players involved in the game. Hopefully soon, maybe, like I said, I can find some local hobby shops that'll let me in there, and I can come down and let you teach you guys some quick painting tips so you can make some beautiful miniature for your game, so I can sick you guys onto that hobby as well, because, oh, it's so happy it makes me when I see people get totally infested in painting and gathering miniatures and stuff, because I really love that part of the hobby. But it's all great. So I wanted to give up this out there and tell you, be a game master. Don't be a prep master. If you have to prep. If you're between the games, your prepping might be painting figs. That works as much better. Or building terrain. Or go find some new cold terrain. Or make it. Or get old chess pieces that look like statues and paint them up. There's so many little things that add to the color. If you watch itch.io with Steve Key at D9 Games, you'll see a lot of my terrain pieces he puts together every week to redo a recap of the adventures of the Timbersprout 5, which was the first playtest we did. And he just loves doing that because he had it all logged out. He logs all the games of what happened, who did what. So you have this great history that gets built. That the next version we run is now built upon the history of the first version we ran. And then the third one is built upon the first and the second. And then the betrayers and the bad guys who went off and did this or did that. So much gets built that I never even have to think about because the players create the exciting adventures, and that's it. Let them go. Let them go crazy. If somebody wants to run a Hebrew fanatic, it's like, okay, what do you think he does? Oh, he does this or that. Okay, that's reasonable. Let's figure it out. Let's modify a character we have that gives you this ability and that ability and this ability to start, and these are your enlightenments, and then you can build from there. Boom. Something new has been added to your game you never thought you'd add. But now it will be there, and it will be part of the history of your campaign, and part of the history of the future, and part of the history of all your gaming from then on. Now you might come and stay and play games for a few years through college, and maybe you lose interest and move on. Maybe you have 14 kids and you lose on. But someday, you'll be going down there, and so your kids or neighbors' kids or somebody will come up and say, hey, we were role-playing this game. Have you ever heard of it? And you're like, yeah, in fact, I run all these games. Let me go dig in the closet and get my dusty box of games. I'll run a game for you guys. And suddenly you're going to be the coolest old dude in the world because, well, you played these things? Oh, yeah, I did. It always used to mystify me. I would have people who would talk about D&D because I was an outside salesman, which meant I was suit and tie, drove a really nice car, talked to people about how to make really cool, unique packaging for their products and POP displays for their movies and stuff. And that was always tons of fun. But occasionally they'd mention something about a game. And I said, oh, yeah, I know about D&D. Oh, really? Yeah, my kid plays it. And it's like, oh, my God, it's like, I worry about him. I said, oh, don't worry about him. He'll turn out great. And he goes, how do you think so? I said, because I've been playing for 25 years, or 20 years, or 15, or 30, or whatever it was. And they would look at me like I had two heads. And I said, believe me, I'm not an Etten. I don't have two heads. And then I would explain it to him, explain why he should jump in and play with them. And it would be so much fun to come out there and see them, 2 weeks or a month later. They'd be like, I got a new character. I got this bard in my son's adventure. And I would just laugh and then I would show them the miniatures, and then I'd give them some miniatures. Here's your bard miniature. And of course, now I've infested them with this disease and they're down the road. That's how I did it. And that's how I got into running a game center for Magic the Gathering when it came out. And we ran tournament for Magic the Gathering. We ran pre-release for Wizards of the Coast. We did all this stuff. It was awesome. And then we got a hobby shop and we had in-store gaming for Magic the Gathering. Well, while we did that, let's have in-store gaming for Warhammer and different battle games and all kinds of things. I even let role-playing come in occasionally if they did it off hours. Because, of course, as I've said before, most role players don't spend any money, which it's hard for someone like myself now trying to design games and make things happen. But the ones out there who do spend money, buy the games for your group. Go on and buy 5 of my PDFs and give them to all your players and start playing my game. Go buy another one of Matt Steele's games. Draw Steel, Matt Colville, MCDM's game. Go buy the ones that the guys from Critical Role put out. Go buy all the games that are out there. Go on eBay, find some ancient game like Earth Dawn that you've never heard of. Buy it, something there. Buy one of the little worlds and just build it. You can use the D&D set of rules. No one says you can't. But now you've got color and history from a different milieu. Something that'll be new and interesting and unique just to you and your game group. There's tons of ways you can have fun and try to do it. Don't worry about it. It's not hard. If you find me coming to cons, you find me at adventures. We just had one of our cons down here in LA. I wish I could have attended, but I just wasn't there and I didn't have time to get anything prepped and everything else. I've been so busy with other things, mostly the city bothering me about my 100-year-old home. But that's the way life goes. People come and there's always some problem you got to deal with because people want you to. Anyway, I've gone on way droning on this too hard, but the point is be a game master. Be able to switch on a dime, evolve, let your players do what you want, help them build an adventure, help them run a module in your game, help them do anything to get them up and running. Because I can tell you, when you have a group that 4 or 5 people can DM, and that's what I've always obtained, man, your life gets a lot easier. Then you can just paint minis. What else is there to do? Anyway, until we have a chance to speak again, fight me devils fight, for I hate peace. Game on.